The average age of an American has gone up dramatically over the last several decades. With this demographic shift has come a greater emphasis on aging well. That is where the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative comes in. Delegated by the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity, it aims to foster communities that are equitable and inclusive to the advanced in age, and especially for those living with Alzheimer's and dementia. Joining us today is Alyssa Norwood, Director of the Collaborative, to talk about her group's charge and best practices for towns and cities to invest and inspire. We'd like to thank our sponsors at Gateway Community College and Housatonic Community College. The Municipal Voice is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities podcast in collaboration with WNHH LP 103.5 FM. I'm your host, Matt Ford. As always, be sure to give us a like and let us know what you're thinking in the comments. CCM's Municipal Voice podcast continues to present a key forum on important state and local issues. The views expressed do not necessarily reflect consensus views of CCM or member municipal leaders. Alyssa, thanks for joining us today.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
The Connecticut Age Well Collaborative is a fairly new organization. Can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do?
Sure. So the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative, I'm going to say it's new and it's not new. So the organization was founded in 2020 to help towns become more aging, dementia, and disability inclusive. But this is work that has been happening internationally since 2007 and in Connecticut since 2013. We're excited. We're a decade into this important work.
You said that it's international. Are there other groups similar in other states around here, or is this kind of one of the first ones in the United States?
Yeah, so I guess the story begins. I mentioned in 2007, the World Health Organization noticed that population demographics were shifting in really unprecedented ways. And the way that's manifesting now, Japan is the first country in the world such that a third of its population is over the age of 65. So people are living longer and healthier lives than ever before. We've never seen anything like this. In 2040, the United States is on track to have its age 65 and older population as a proportion of the population exceed its 18 and under population. So, recognizing that this is an unprecedented time in human history, towns needed to get ready for what that meant. So, the World Health Organization launched this international effort, which at the time was called the Age Friendly Cities Initiative, and it really rippled around the world. And Connecticut was a pretty early adopter compared to other states. But now most states, either at the local, regional, or state level, are thinking about aging, dementia, and disability inclusivity. So we're excited to have a lot of peers across the country that are all engaged in this work together.
Really cool. Yeah, I know I recently saw an article, I think might have been in the Times, about China's aging population and how, historically populations, a pyramid is supposed to be a pyramid with, less older people at the top, and then it goes out, and now a lot of countries in China, Japan are kind of have this shape where there's lots of old people and not so many young people to take care of them. It's
Yeah, well, it's interesting you mentioned this idea of taking care of them. I had the privilege of going to the
yeah.
American Society on Aging conference, and the
Mhm.
keynote speech was called "Ending Ageism and Ableism Together." So
Mhm.
I'll label myself. I'll begin by saying we're all ageist. It's
Mhm.
unconscious. We don't even know it, but this idea of taking care of older adults, it just sort of rolls right off the tongue. But
Mhm.
it's really been great learning for me to pause and think about how many of us don't need care, and that we have this really baked in presumption that older adults are a population we need to take care of, where we're all aging. It's our collective journey, and we all have the opportunity to be engaged in thriving, and don't necessarily all need care. So I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
we disrupt
I know
and
my
own
great
that
aunt Lib
presumption.
was still driving us and taking us out to lunch well into her 90s. So
Right,
that's
we all have those great
certainly
stories.
true. But they do have some needs that are unique as we get older. Certainly, some medical needs and things like that. According to your Connecticut Healthy Aging Data Report, we are one of only 4 states in the nation that have extensive data available for healthy aging. What goes into building that report, and why don't more states do it?
Part of it is we're just lucky that we have great partners, and that includes both academic partners and philanthropic partners that are investing and making sure we have great information. So that report was created in partnership with the Gerontology Institute of the Graduate School of Policy and Global Health at University of Massachusetts. So they are engaged in that same work again, actually, and are going to be releasing the newest data report within most likely the next 2 years. And that work was funded, as is ours, by the Point 32 Health Foundation, which is a merger of Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare Foundation and the Tufts Health Plan Foundation. And they're one of the only funders in the Northeast that's really deeply committed to looking through this aging lens. So it's really as a result of not necessarily more importance here than anyone else, just more investment and attention. So we're really grateful for that.
Yeah, we're really lucky to have that in Connecticut. Can you talk a little bit about aging? We mentioned earlier that some other countries like Italy and China are aging quicker than they expected to. Do we know why and how this kind of trend happens in countries?
Yeah, for lots of good reasons. And I love there's an earlier question where you talked about how you used we, right? So this idea aging, we're all doing it. It's this great space of conversation because it's universal, right? There's not one of us whose minds and bodies aren't changing. So there are a lot of societal forces that are shifting demographics as they are. I mentioned one, part of it is just a space of celebration in spaces of public health, in healthcare, in deeper understanding of our environment and its impacts on health, and all of those things kind of converging at this moment where we're all living longer and healthier lives than ever before in human history. So, that coupled with decreasing numbers of children being born for a variety of reasons at this moment in time have resulted in this shift in proportionality. So it's interesting to see the unfolding of that since this is a new time in human history.
Age well is, as an organization, is more kind of practical and theoretical. You think about how to handle the repercussions of an aging population. What are some of the factors that can help with to access, equity and inclusion?
Yeah. So, at the most fundamental level, we're all seeking a sense of belonging in our communities. And it's easier for some populations than others, is the reality. And it shouldn't be that way. We all should be able to have equal opportunity to thrive, regardless of age or ability. So, the World Health Organization's framework really was the foundation of our work. So, there are a number of different ways and lenses to look at livability. So those include, access to affordable and accessible housing or transportation, irrespective of our ability to drive, our ability to socially participate and engage. And each one of those and every other area, necessarily you have to look at it with an equity lens because for all of us to thrive and to have the best Connecticut communities we can, everyone's contributions need to be welcomed and celebrated, and we all need equal access to be our best selves and to make our communities the best they can be.
I know you're releasing a series of guides that are aimed at towns and cities. Your first guide was Fostering Aging, Dementia, and Disability Inclusivity, which came out, I guess, in November.
That's right.
What role do municipalities play in helping as we advance in age?
So, oh gosh, there's so many different ways that municipalities are really at the center of this. So, I guess I'd start by saying that town governments are powerful and respected change agents, and they have a lot of ability to not just effectuate change as town governments, but also to inspire other institutional change. So that's a starting point. And when we think about age and ability based equity and inclusion, and the role of municipalities and the benefits to municipalities, improved decision making, helps us all by making sure that we represent all residents. It makes sure that we can equitably allocate resources. It makes sure that we deepen trust among residents and that we improve health. And I think probably one of the most interesting things is there was a study done a number of years ago by the Knight Foundation that showed that towns that have a greater focus on equity and really help residents deepen their emotional connection to community actually demonstrated higher rates of economic growth and more prosperity. So there are all kinds of good reasons,
Yeah.
including the fact that towns fare better on all levels, not just in terms of resident connection.
Yeah. Are there any projects in Connecticut that a municipality has done that kind of stands out to you as like a success or, a real to be, celebrated?
Yeah, so your timing of that question is auspicious because as an organization, we decided that lots of great things are happening in the state and that they needed to be lifted up and recognized. And so on April 26th at the state capitol, we'll be handing out our first ever Wellspring Awards, where we'll be honoring 4 Connecticut communities for their excellence in helping foster grading, aging, dementia, and disability inclusivity. So the 4 awardees, one of them is Glastonbury. They've been engaged in a multi-year effort to create an initiative called Age Friendly Glastonbury that really embodies everything that I've talked about, looking at what makes Glastonbury great and how to lift that up and make sure that it's accessible at every age and life stage. Then there's Groton, which has the best named senior center ever. They're called Thrive 55 Plus. So really trying to rebrand and celebrate aging as a process. There's some interesting studies that show the word senior is associated with less competence. So again, these negative stereotypes. And then Connecticut Central State University was the state's first age friendly university. So we'll be celebrating their efforts. And then finally, the town of Southington has been doing a lot of work very focused on dementia to help celebrate residents at all stages as they experience cognitive change. So lots of great work happening, and we hope that we'll see folks there to celebrate and learn more about all the great examples.
That is really cool. You mentioned that, sometimes the word senior has, some implications for people. Is there a trend away from calling things senior centers? Is there, a new way to look at them and to talk about them?
Yeah, there's a national debate, and I think each community needs to make its own decision. There's a lot of brand and name recognition around the phrase senior center. And then there's also data that shows that most older adults don't identify with the word senior or like to be called senior. So I think more than the cascading language, which is always changing and evolving, is more just confronting ageism head on so that we don't have to worry about the words that we use and we're simply just celebrating people regardless of how old they are.
I know another guide that's going to come out this year is going to be called Celebrating Vitality and Promoting Inclusivity in Our Communities. And in there, you talk about some really interesting concept like the mythology and glorification of youth, the shifting definition of retirement, and how that is related to ageism and ableism. Can you talk about some of those concepts?
Yeah. Oh gosh, there's so much to unpack in there. So there are a lot of thought leaders nationally, and one of them is an academic named Tracy Gendron, and she wrote a really great book. It's called Ageism Unmasked. If there are any librarians listening or others that run book groups simply in people's living rooms, it's a good read and a good conversation. But she, as best as she can, and I'm not going to do her justice, but she really looks historically at, how did we get here? How did we get to this place where we have this pretty narrow conception of what constitutes somebody who's valuable in society? So she points to a lot of different reasons. One she gives is the rise of the Industrial Revolution and how there were these long held perceptions of older adults as learned professionals and tradespeople, often in agrarian settings, and families started to break apart as younger adults would move away from these multi generational farm settings and begin working in factories. And that was really the beginning as those younger generations started adapting to faster paced technology, and there was this disruption of the extended family structure that these shifting roles and responsibilities really led us to start normalizing age and disability based segregation. If people needed additional supports, we walled people off from society and from intergenerational opportunity. We created professionalized caregiving. So this whole shift and change happened, and then interestingly retirement became a life stage. And I really enjoy her framing. She talks about, if you go to a party and you ask someone, well, what do you do, and somebody gives the answer, I'm retired, that's not a life stage. It's defining somebody by who they used to be. I am now someone who doesn't work really means I'm someone who used to work, but it's not embodying now. So there are all these really interesting forces at play. So my favorite phrase rather than retirement that I heard recently is
Mm.
one of renewment. So
Oh,
when we leave one life stage, right, we're really renewing, we're reinventing, we're rebirthing ourselves.
yeah,
So may it be that we all are lucky enough to retire. Speaking of equity,
yeah.
economic security is such that many of us have different access to being able to retire. But when we do, that it's not a time of retirement, but it's a time of new opportunities.
Yeah. I know my grandfather, didn't need to work, but he chose to, well into, his later years. He got, a job at the local deli just making sandwiches in the morning just because he loved to, talk to everybody in the neighborhood and make them food. It
Yeah,
was,
I don't think there's any
yeah,
any research that shows that, it's a good idea after a life of professional engagement to suddenly stop completely and be on
just
vacation for the
just
rest of your
sit
life.
around
So,
or whatever. Yeah. You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM. So you mentioned before the Thrive 55 in Groton as being a really standout center. Could you talk a little bit more about them and what how they're an inspiration to other towns in the area?
yeah, so I mentioned that they went through this really introspective process that led
Hmm.
to their rebranding. So again, back to your question of what should senior centers be called, I think it's less about the outcome of that process and more
Hmm.
about the deep look in the reckoning around, well,
Hmm.
who we are and who do we serve and how do we want to be seen in the community. So I think there's a lot of value in the process that they went through. And in addition, they really, in my experience, and I wish they were here to speak on behalf of
Yeah.
themselves, I'm speaking about them, but they're very interdisciplinary in their
Hmm.
thinking, and they understand that to work in a siloed space doesn't serve anyone. So I talked a little bit about dementia as one of our focus areas and cognitive change. They recognize that there are deep ties to other populations that are also experiencing cognitive change that maybe don't have dementia and maybe aren't even older, but that there's real opportunity for partnership um, because we're all stronger together. So I really value the way they see the world, and hope folks will come and hear them share their story. And it'll also be in our third municipal resource guide that we're releasing later this month. Yeah, so the state of Connecticut actually received money. They were one of only a few states from the CDC to create a statewide plan
Hmm.
on Alzheimer's disease and related dementias. And we and a number of other partners had the privilege to help the Department of Public Health inform that plan. So it's two wings of a bird. So there's a lot of emphasis and conversation on
Hmm.
brain health, which makes sense. Dementia is
Yeah.
scary. So people want to know, well, what can I do? But the other half of the conversation is around our systems and our environment and what
Hmm.
can we do to provide opportunities for stimulation. Do
Hmm.
we do we build walkable neighborhoods where people at all ages and stages can feel safe being out in the
Hmm.
community and have those kind of spontaneous social interactions and engagement that it's a lot harder to come by if we're all just driving in our cars.
Yeah.
And then inevitably, no matter what we do, some of us will experience dementia, and
Hmm.
to, as a society, celebrate and embrace the fact that we all have continuing opportunity to be
Hmm.
contributors and change agents, and that life continues after a
Yeah.
dementia diagnosis, and that we can successfully live with dementia.
One other fun thing, you have a theme song called "We Age Well." What inspired the idea to incorporate music into the academy?
Oh gosh, that's such a great question. So I feel like everyone, myself included, entered the post pandemic world with an
Hmm.
incredible amount of online fatigue and gratitude. It's the way that we all engaged. But when I mapped out the series, I just thought to myself, with all of these hours of time that we've spent engaging online in this way,
Hmm.
what could make this exciting and special? And I feel like the arts are a really integral part of the way that
Hmm.
we all live and thrive. Some of us as artists ourselves, certainly all of us as consumers, we need the arts the way we need food. Even if we don't know it, it just feeds our souls. So this idea of having a musical theme just came to me, and
Hmm.
Jeff McQuillan is this tremendously talented composer, musician, storyteller, teacher. I mean, he's really a chameleon. He does it all. And he's also beloved by his students at the Greater Hartford Academy of the Arts. So when I learned, in addition, that he was a former Connecticut state troubadour and
Oh.
himself an aging older adult here in Connecticut, and we met, it was a really natural fit. So
Hmm.
he was commissioned, and through a process of a lot of reckoning with what it is to come up with lyrics that tell the story
Yeah.
of what it is to age well in Connecticut, we produced this fun song.
In Connecticut, we age well, we age well, we all can. In Connecticut, we age well in every town across the lifespan. We all gather wisdom in our open hearts, growing stronger when we all belong. Opportunity in community, including everyone, is where it starts. In Connecticut, we age well, we age well, we all can. In Connecticut, we age well in every town across the lifespan. Got complete streets we can get around, housing choice and public space abound. Join our progress toward equity, deep connection and inclusivity. Visioning the future, we listen and we learn. Let's go where we grow all life long. When we feel seen, you know we're shining bright. When we honor choice, we know we're living right. Follow all to chart systems change, to make places we can thrive. We'll plan and zone together, dance here every season is good, it's so good, good to be alive. In Connecticut, we age well, we age well, we all can. In Connecticut, we age well in every town across the lifespan. In Connecticut, we age well, we age well, we all can. In Connecticut, we age well in every town.
You are listening to the Municipal Voice on WNHH 103.5 FM. I know you're doing an Age Well Academy. Can you tell us a little bit about the Academy, what that program's like?
Yeah, so and it's a space of excitement and celebration in terms of our partnership with CCM.
Hmm.
So all municipal staff and local elected officials can participate in the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities program for
Hmm.
continuing education credit and get recognized at the end of the calendar year. So we decided, well, what would it look like? Colleges offer majors. What would it
Hmm.
look like if we kind of offered our own little concentration in these issues of aging, dementia, and disability. So it's a multi-part series offered over the course of 2023, and individuals
Very
that
cool.
attend 5 or more of our sessions will get particular recognition at the end of the
Hmm.
year that they not only completed their credits, but that they did so with a focus in this
So they get
area.
their
And
their certified CCMO, certified municipal official thing with a concentration in aging studies, or what it was going to say on the certificate, you think?
Yeah, it'll be a surprise because we're
Yeah,
still figuring it out. But
it'll sound good, whatever it is. Is there one thing that you wish other people knew about aging, about those already in advanced age? What would it be?
so I say this with humility because I myself am only 41 years old. So there's a lot that I don't know yet about the continuing unfolding of the aging journey. But what I know of it so far is that so much of the negativity around aging is really a story, and that there's tremendous opportunity to us to continue to thrive, to grow, to access deeper levels of wisdom and opportunity. So I guess the one thing I would say is to not fear our future selves and to really celebrate and trust that whatever inevitable challenges arise, because that's part of the nature of change, that by and large the reports are that life only gets better. So the story is one of optimism.
I agree. You've talked about a lot of different programs and stuff. If people are listening at home, what can they do? How can they get involved?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I guess from my organization's perspective, I'd start by encouraging folks to sign up for our remaining Age Well Academy events.
Hmm.
It's a place not just of us sharing information, but also connecting across Connecticut with like-minded individuals and organizations who care and are passionate about this. The second thing that I do is encourage folks, if you're in town government already, and if you're a resident, to contact local government and mention that you care about this and that it goes deeper than just services. So, if you say the word aging, most people will, in a knee jerk kind of way, talk about nursing homes or senior centers or Meals on Wheels. And those are all critical and important parts of the aging services system. But our organization is really pushing the conversation to a deeper place. Are your planning and zoning officials thinking about aging? And as new housing decisions are made, does the housing stock support someone who's lived in a single family home with bedrooms on the second floor their whole lives that suddenly might reach a life stage where the stairs aren't possible? Is there enough room in town for those folks to continue living and aging in the community in which they maybe have raised children and spent their whole life? We all live in a little bit of denial and don't recognize that, forget about sort of normal aging, but that at any moment our abilities can change. So just being really mindful and planful, because 70% of Connecticut's housing stock is single family with bedrooms on the second floor. And that's not the kind of housing we need. In fact, a really compelling study done by the Centers for Housing Opportunity found that within affordable housing stock, which we need a lot more of in this state, a third of those units need to be built to be accessible, meaning that if our body or mind function change, that they could be navigated with an assistive mobility device without stairs. So the reality of the Connecticut that we've built and the systems that we have doesn't match the reality of what we need now, and definitely not what we're going to need in the future.
And I think that's a good way to lead into our last question here. We always kind of like to end looking forward. Are you optimistic about the future of Connecticut, about aging issues in Connecticut?
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I think because we've been, I mentioned, in some level doing this work for a decade now. In 2013, Connecticut passed something called the Livable Community Statute. If anyone gets really excited about looking at statutory language, it's Section 17B 420A. But for a decade now, we've really kept our eye on the prize, which is creating places where we can all grow up and grow older, and that we can embrace change and not worry that our communities won't have a place for us. So there's a lot more work to do, but I'm pleased and proud to be part of one of the first states who really identified this as a key issue.
Yeah, it sounds like we're in a better position than a lot of other states for us all to hopefully age well together. Well, Alyssa Norwood, thank you so much for speaking with us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt. This was fun. I appreciate you giving time and space to this.
We'd like to thank our guest, Alyssa Norwood. We'd like to thank our sponsors at Gateway Community College and Housatonic Community College. Learn more at gatewayct.edu and housatonic.edu. The Municipal Voice is a co-production by CCM and WNHH 103.5 FM. Kevin Maloney is our executive producer. Christopher Gilson is our producer. Harry Draws is on the boards. And I'm Matt Ford, your host. Be sure to check out our Facebook page and give us a like, and watch out for our CCM chat series on our YouTube page.